Today's video is a sequel to the How to Watch Kamen Rider video, which was my viewing guide in every Kamen Rider series and movie at that point. It was made for the timing release of Shin Kamen Rider. Today's video is going to focus on what has come out since and updating that guide. It will not be reiterating what is in that guide, so go watch the original video if you haven't already, and then come back to this one for the future updates. And this video also is going to be because Geats and Gotchard have both wrapped airing, and we are looking forward to the beginning of Kamen Rider Gavv, which is coming up very soon. So it's essentially the Geats, Gotchard, Gavv update, and there are some extra little things in between, plus additional announcements of licensing for official releases of shows. So we got a lot to get to, but it's going to be an update to that previous video. So if you haven't seen that one, now's the time to go watch that one, and then come back and watch the rest of this one. Let's begin. It's morphin' time. Hello, this is Soundout here, and today's video is the first ever update to a viewing guide. I've not done an update before. I've done several viewing guides. Check them out on the channel. There's a nice little playlist. But I've not done an update before. So I want your thoughts, your feedback. Let me know in the comments on if this format works or if I should just be remaking these videos all the time. I feel like intersplicing new footage with the old footage would be a little much, and you know, some people may just want to see the new stuff. So we're doing this format. We're going to just add to what the previous video had. So let me know in the comments, and while you're down there, hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, so you can keep up with future videos, help us get out to more people. But I think before we get into what new Kamen Rider media exists, let's talk about what has been licensed since the last video. So first things first, Kamen Rider Black RX from Discotek Media has been released on Blu-ray. It's a pretty solid release. Really do like this one, and it's pretty exciting because we also got word that the next Kamen Rider Blu-ray Discotek will be releasing is Kamen Rider V3 coming in the near future, which is pretty great. So that means there is another Rider show on the way. The Media Bastards release of Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, Kamen Rider Zeto, and Kamen Rider J should be releasing in September. There's a limited edition set that's exclusive to their store, and there'll be regular single releases of those movies coming at a later time. So those movies are finally starting to come out. And then lastly, Shout Factory has released Kamen Rider Geats on Blu-ray, as well as put it up on streaming through Tokusatsu platforms such as the Shout Factory website, as well as Tubi and other services. So Geats is now officially licensed, though none of its movies and specials are, and that might be an issue, as we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, the bulk of this update will be Geats and Gotchard, because those are now completed runs on shows, and we have movies and specials to add to them. But there were some updates I wanted to provide on previous shows. So for Kamen Rider Faiz, in the last video I mentioned the upcoming 20th anniversary movie, Kamen Rider Faiz Paradise Reignited. That movie has now since come out, and we do know that that is an alternate universe movie, but it's an alternate universe where it takes place 20 years after the last episode of Faiz, ignoring the rest of the Faiz characters' appearances in any future Kamen Rider media. So it's a real good sequel to the show, but it's not necessarily taking into consideration all the other appearances of the characters throughout other Rider shows and other crossovers, which is going to be kind of hit or miss depending on who you are. There also was a 2-episode Faiz murder case special, which was done with the cast. It is an alternate universe. It's just kind of a little spin-off thing, but it's kind of fun, and it was a nice little surprise that popped up. Also for Kamen Rider Double fans, the Futo PI anime, which had its 12-episode run, is getting a sequel film in the form of Futo PI, The Portrait of Kamen Rider Skull. This will be a continuation, as the characters are going to tell the story of Kamen Rider Skull, and we're basically getting an entire Skull film animated and releasing in Japanese theaters in November 2024, which is pretty exciting. It seems to be sort of remaking elements of Begins Night from Kamen Rider Double and Decades crossover, and also Memory of Skull from the Kamen Rider O's and Double crossover. So that's looking like it's going to be a good time. And of course, the continuity nightmare known as Kamen Rider Outsiders is still continuing, releasing one episode every few months or so. That almost needs its own viewing guide to plan out how it all connects to everything. But we'll see how it's going. Episode 6 is the next one coming up, so Outsiders is going to keep going. Now with that out of the way, of course, we have 2 completed Kamen Rider shows with a bunch of movies and specials tying into them. So let's get started with Kamen Rider Geats. Henshin! Kamen Rider Geats is the story of the Desire Grand Prix, a battle royale competition where the winner gets their wish granted no matter what it is. And it is a fascinating show. Structured much differently than other Kamen Rider shows, there are distinctive arcs in the series, And because of the way the Desire Grand Prix works, every round resets everyone's memories, which means you're not exactly sure where some characters might end up. There's drama, there's intrigue, and things kind of keep going, though there is some downsides to resetting the characters every few episodes. But it is really fascinating to see what they come up with next, and what the true secret behind the Desire Grand Prix is. It also has really stellar action and music. Honestly, it's one of my favorite scores out of a Kamen Rider series to date. Plus, with the benefit of Geats being on streaming and Blu-ray from Shout, it's pretty easy to find if you want to watch it, and I'd say it's a pretty decent sort of introductory show in a lot of ways. It gives you your Rider Battle Royale, but doesn't worry about Rider continuity as much, and it's an interesting premise that will stand out amongst other shows. Now, Geats itself aired from 2022 to 2023, lasting for 49 episodes. In addition to these 49 episodes, there were several movies and specials. I'm not going to include every special just like I did with the last guide, because some of these they're just like a short little comedy bit, and they're fine if you seek them out and you find them, but they're not adding to your experience. So in terms of important movies, 2022's Kamen Rider Geats X Revice Movie Battle Royale, taking place after episode 16. This works as an epilogue for Revice as well as an interlude for Geats. This movie is, I think, pretty important because at the time it came out, it didn't seem like it impacted the show at all, but there's elements of this movie that made their way not only into the series' plot, but also into some of the side specials that I'm not including on this guide, and it's kind of amazing that a crossover movie has this much impact on the main series. It is apparently important for like a third arc plot point, and it's kind of amazing because that doesn't usually happen with the Kamen Rider movies. They're sort of just like, oh, that's the thing over there, and sometimes they might reference them, but this case, very important movie. Next up, the Geats Extra Special, Kamen Rider Tycoon meets Kamen Rider Shinobi, taking place after episode 30. This special is not just Tycoon meets Shinobi, but a crossover between every Ninja Kamen Rider to date. And that makes it super duper cool because, well, there's very few times they actually do something like this. So appearing in this special is, of course, Kamen Rider Tycoon, who is one of the main writers of Kamen Rider Geats. You have Kamen Rider Shinobi, who's one of the alternate world, alternate possible future writers from Kamen Rider Gyo. And this special sort of acts like a pretend episode of a Shinobi series that never happened. And so I like that they continued that trend from Shinobi's previous special during the Gyo run. Also featured in this is Kamen Rider Kenzan and Kamen Rider Fuma from Kamen Rider Saber and Kamen Rider Ex-Aid respectively. But of course, the most important thing, making his once-in-an-era appearance, Kamen Rider Zaycross, one of my favorite writers of all time, despite the fact he's only been on screen with his actor 3 times. It was the Kamen Rider Zaycross special, then Heisei Writers versus Showa Writers Kamen Rider Tyson, and then now Kamen Rider Tycoon meets Shinobi. And he's not the main character of the special, but Zaycross, he walks into the room and becomes the main character of the special. It's honestly pretty great. But this crossover of Ninja Riders is a fun special. I wouldn't say it's super impactful on the plot of the show, but it's pretty cool, and hey, anytime you get Kamen Rider Zaycross in something, it's a good time. Following this, the Geats Extra Kamen Rider Punkjack special, taking place after episode 35, fills in details on the character of Kamen Rider Punkjack, as well as behind-the-scenes information of how the Desire Grand Prix operates. And I say that because the Desire Grand Prix works like a show in a show. So you kind of get a look behind the curtain and how some of these things are done and what is done to keep the Desire Grand Prix operating. So for that, I'd say this is a very important special that you definitely should check out. Geats' summer movie, Kamen Rider Geats 4 Aces and the Black Fox, takes place after episode 45. This movie is quite a good time. It sees some different elements mixed in. This was led into by the series. They had a cameo of the movie's main villain in the show itself. And it sees the main character, Kamen Rider Geats, Yukio Ace, getting split into 4 different beings and everyone having to deal with how that works out for them. It's a fun time, and it's definitely a good adventure with the characters. Now, following the events of the series, there were a couple extra things that we had. First of all, Kamen Rider the Winter movie, Gotchard and Geats, Strongest Kimmy, Great Gotcha Operation, works as a epilogue to the Geats series, but also works as an interlude for the Gotchard series. And we'll talk about the Gotchard placement when we talk about Gotchard. But the important part here is that this movie does follow up with the characters following the series, and it does have some important details therein. Next up, the Kamen Rider Geats Extra Kamen Rider Gazer Special. actually provides some more backstory, some more detail. If you're looking for some more depth into some of the things and the elements that worked in the Geats series, this is going to give you some more of that. It also works as an interlude between the Gotchard and Geats movie and the next film, and that being Kamen Rider Geats Yamato Awakening, which is the full final epilogue for the Geats cast, and it does feature a lot of cool fights, a lot of cool elements, and some neat storytelling. It does put a pin on the series as a whole. So that's Kamen Rider Geats and its relevant movies and specials. There definitely was a lot of them, and at first there wasn't. It wasn't until the back half of the show that it started pumping them out. But I like a lot of the things that they did there. Sort of, it wasn't anything that the series needed, like plot-wise. Like sometimes, like with Kamen Rider Saber, some of the side specials provided plot information that we really could have used in the show. It's not like that for Geats. Most of the stuff that it adds to the lore and the world building is just, hey, did you want to know how that happens? That was kind of what it was, and I think that was pretty cool. Plus some nice epilogue stuff, sort of rounding out the series. And it kind of works because the finale at times feels a little bit rushed, and so it's nice that we had some time afterwards to sort of process things with the characters. But let's get on to the next series, Kamen Rider Gotchard. Henshin! Running from 2023 to 2024, Kamen Rider Gotchard is the most recently completed Kamen Rider series. This series is about a high school student who discovers the world of alchemy and the creatures known as chemis. Wanting to befriend them all and create a world where humans and chemis can coexist, this is an optimistic, light-hearted Kamen Rider series that will hit you in the feels when it wants to. This series also has a lot of steps forward for the Kamen Rider franchise, introducing the first female secondary writer, Kamen Rider Majade, Kudo Rine. She is the first official secondary writer to be a woman, and that is a step forward because typically we've had women writers, but they've only been third writers or further beyond, but she's the secondary. There also is less Kamen Riders per the season. We've kind of gotten to this point where it's typical for a writer show to have 10 to 12 writers a show, especially in Geats. There was a ton because of the Desire Grand Prix system. But in Gotchard, there's only about 5 writers, which is actually pretty nice because that just felt like a breather in a lot of ways. That being said, it allows the supporting cast of the show to be very helpful and useful in battles. They don't have to be Kamen Riders to fight alongside the writers, and I think that's an element we've been missing for a long time. It also saw a return of more sequential episodic stories that build towards the serialized narrative, which we saw in earlier Heisei Kamen Rider that we've been missing in the Reiwa era. It's been pretty much like 50-part stories. This let the show breathe a little bit and kind of give us some one-off episodes that also build towards the overall story. So because of this, if you're looking for something fun, if you're looking for something engaging, for a show that I feel like continues its pace from the beginning to end and doesn't completely abandon its theme or characters halfway through, which happens too frequently in the franchise, I think Gotchard might be the show for you. Also, if you love collecting trading cards, or if you love monster collecting shows like Pokemon or Digimon or Monster Rancher, Gotchard would probably be up your alley as well. So going alongside the 50 episodes of Kamen Rider Gotchard, there were several specials and movies that are important to the series as a whole and have specific placements. The absolute most important thing I'm going to tell you about is the Kamen Rider Gotchard vs. Kamen Rider Legends special. 2 episodes that take place after episode 8. What is amazing is that this is a major event that leads into an arc later in the series, and that arc also leads into Kamen Rider Outsiders, which is why Outsiders is kind of hard to track and follow. But it is very important that you know who Kamen Rider Legend is because he will be a character in the Gotchard main series as well. So this special introduces Kamen Rider Legend. Yes, he does look like a gold Kamen Rider Decade. That is on purpose. There also is Kamen Rider Winter Movie, Gotchard and Geats, Strongest Chemi Great Gotcha Operation, which was the crossover with Kamen Rider Geats, and that takes place after episode 15. Kamen Rider Gotchard The Future Daybreak, Gotchard's summer movie, takes place after episode 43, and shows the future timeline of Gotchard Daybreak, which was an element introduced in the series that didn't fully get resolved by the end of the show, because it was kind of setting up this movie. So this movie is very important to the Gotchard series as a whole, and I do recommend checking it out. It is seeming like it is an important chapter of the overall Gotchard story. And then lastly, the final episode of Gotchard is receiving a director's cut, which will be a little bit longer, and that should be coming out soon as well. All these pieces are the important elements of Gotchard's story. There are other specials where they kind of do one-off things that don't really like contribute to the overall narrative, and there's a lot of fun ones in there. There's a full version of the Romeo and Juliet play from the series, which is kind of fun as well. There has not been yet announced any future Gotchard movies or crossovers, though we do expect that Gotchard will cross over with Kamen Rider Gotchard when it comes out, because that's kind of how they usually do things, usually a winter movie. But usually by this point we'd already have an announcement of a follow-up film to Gotchard, which doesn't seem to have been announced yet. If it will, we'll have to update the viewing guide on the next go-around. But that is pretty much Kamen Rider Gotchard. It's a pretty straightforward series with not too much side material, so I do recommend checking it out. That brings us to 2024's Kamen Rider Gavv, debuting the weekend after this video was published. This is going to be a snack food themed series featuring a main character who's I believe he's an alien from another world, and he comes to Earth and tries to fit in and figure things out. And all of his abilities are based on different snack foods. And that's basically the general premise. The villains are called the Stomach Family, and they have things coming out of their stomachs to eat things, which is lovely, and I'm excited to see what this new take on Kamen Rider will be like. We will see what future movies and specials will have to be inclined to Kamen Rider Gavv, and it will be interesting to see how the series progresses over the next year. But that is pretty much this update to the Kamen Rider guide, because, well, that's everything that's been announced since. So I know this is the shortest video in the viewing guide playlist because, well, there wasn't too much to update, but enough that I felt like it was time to make a video. And it also just was kind of fun to do a little bit of a lighter one of these on production side, because these viewing guides are a huge intake of work. So if you haven't checked out any of the others you might be interested in, I do recommend it. You can also just hit play all on the playlist and it'll just roll you through them. I work hard to try to make these franchises more accessible and easier to understand, and this is just continuing part of it. So let me know what you think of the format of this update. We'll see how I have to update the Ultraman and the Sentai, you know, those franchises that have constantly got new stuff coming out. So keep an eye out for that. Let me know in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't already. I do really appreciate that. Seems like it's not much, but it does really, really help the channel. Also on that note, come join our Discord server in the link below to come hang out, discuss things, and you can join our live streams on this YouTube channel every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern, which we talk about news and entertainment and toys and comics and games sometimes. We discuss a little bit of all of it, and it's always a good time. Also, we have channel memberships available if you'd like early access to videos or special shout-outs, remember exclusive live streams. You hit the join button down below for more details. There's different tiers to join, and there is a lot of cool perks down there. Plus, that helps support the channel directly because that helps us grow and continue to do videos like this, because these are a huge amount of undertaking of time, and I really like doing them, so I'd like to keep being able to do this full time. So on that note though, let's give a special shout out to several of our channel members. Special shout out to all of our channel members, including our Captain Tiers, Spin-54, Toma K, Master Ben 95, Jamie's World, Jack Move Johnny, Yukio Sayuki, Michael Flores, Steel, Aaron, Rabbitman, Shigs, Jess Hood, Vigo, Common Pikachu, Geats, Andy Stutz, Joy-Con Girl, Dazagno, and Ben Odinson. Thank you all for your support of this channel. If you so wish, you can find me across most social media platforms at Soundout12, though I am more active on our Discord server. And you can find my awesome graphic designer on social media and on Discord at DarkClaw643. Plus, you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for Tokusatsu news, interviews, reviews, and more cool things coming in the future. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.